If you can draw rectangles, triangles, and circles, then you can draw Bluey. And I'm about to show you exactly how to do it. So grab your drawing tools and let's get started. Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and a little bit of design too. Now today's video is super fun because you will learn a quick and easy method to draw any dog in the style of Bluey's characters, including Bluey herself, of course. I will do the demo on my iPad using the app Procreate, and if you are working with Procreate too, I have some good news. We will only use the free brushes included in the app. If you do want to get a head start, pause the video here and go download the free template provided in the video description below and jump straight to the timestamp on the screen to start customizing your dog. Otherwise, stay right here and I'll show you exactly how to draw the base structure from scratch by combining simple shapes. But before we start, I want to quickly share a few illustrations that you created by following some of my tutorials. If you want a chance to be featured in one of my future step-by-step drawing tutorials like this one, make sure to share the result of this tutorial on Instagram and tag me as well so I can see it. The canvas size I am using here is the default screen size for my device, which sounds a little bit random, but it is these dimensions right here, so 2732 pixels by 2048 pixels. We're going to start here with a very quick and rough sketch to map out the general proportions, or I guess creating the structure of the character. So to do that, you can go ahead and pick in the sketching pack that comes with the app, the HB pencil, and we are going to set it to gray so that it's not too dark. We're going to start with just a super simple rectangle, which is going to be our dog's body. And then we are going to round the corners. Just like that. Okay, so from there, go ahead and split that rectangle in two halves. Now that line does not need to be pretty, but make sure the two sections you create are as close to equal as possible. Now this guide will help us draw the snout, which starts roughly in the middle of this guide, goes out a little bit past the edge of our rectangle here, then up, and back in. Now from there we're going to refine the snout really quickly by adding the corner of the mouth and the nose. So for the mouth, you can just bring up your line like this and create this curved T shape here. And the nose is a simple rounded triangle at the front like this. Okay, so already just this, to me it looks like a Bluey character, but we're not done yet obviously, so we're going to move on to adding the legs and the arms next. The legs are also super easy, and you can start by drawing 4 straight vertical lines. And from there we're going to draw the feet, so you could draw a curvy shape at the front, and then this curvy shape at the bottom like this. Repeating on the other leg. And adding a little curved line like this for the toes. Awesome! Now the arm's pretty much the same thing, except the hand at the bottom is a hand, not, feet. So we're going to draw 2 vertical lines as well. They start a little bit lower than our middle line we have here, and they're going to be a little bit closer than the lines we drew for the legs, meaning the arm is a little bit thinner than the legs. The hands on Bluey characters are quite simple, so you could go ahead and draw just this kind of circular shape to start with. And just like we did for the toes, we're going to add a few simple curved lines to draw the fingers. But before that, I'm just going to quickly use my eraser to clean up some of the lines, because otherwise it's going to be confusing in the videos. But in your case, you don't have to worry about this, because we're going to clean the sketch once we're done mapping it out. But I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing very clearly in the video. So the fingers, again, super simple. We're going to have this U shape for, I guess, what would be the index. The thumb is going to remain just the curve we had. And then to separate the other 2 fingers, because there's just 3 fingers on Bluey characters, we're going to draw this curve like this. So really, a U shape and then a C curve is pretty much all we're doing. The other hand is almost hidden, but we do see a little bit of it, so you can add a C curve like this in the front of the leg, almost touching the very front of the body. Okay, so we're on a roll. Let's just keep going with it. We're going to move on to the tail next, which changes a lot based on the character. Here I'm going to go with Bluey's tail, which you can start to draw like you would draw, I guess, a beaver tail. And then at the end, we're going to add 4 little curves. So one here, one here, one here, and one here. Zooming out, I realized I drew it way too big. That's not a big deal. That's actually a good opportunity for me to show you that if you are working with Procreate, any of your shapes at this stage can easily be resized and repositioned. And to do so, you would simply use the selection tool here at the top. Set it to freehand so you can draw whatever selection you want. And then do exactly that. So draw a selection around whichever element. Tap on the little circle here to close your selection. And then with the arrow tool, set to uniform so that you don't mess up the proportions, or freeform or distort if you want to change the proportions. You're going to be able to, well, change the size and move the element around. So that's a better shape, or a better size I should say, for the tail. Should be similar to the legs. From there, we're going to draw the ears. The ears are super simple. They are big triangles and they align with the edges of the head, at least Bluey's ears. So I'm going to start with the front one. I'm literally just going to bring the line I have for the front of the body up quite a bit and then create a slight curve. It's not perfectly straight line. There's a little bit of a curvature to it to close my triangle. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other ear. So straight line that goes up and then closing my triangle with a slight curve. And this one should align with the back of the head. Now the inside of the ear is just, simple triangles. And since our dog is kind of at a 3/4 angle here, you can leave more space on the back of the ear than at the front. Just popping in for a second, if you are enjoying today's video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you are not already. I know this is the most YouTuber thing to say, and it still pains me to say it, but it really makes a huge difference when people do that. And it's a great way to support your favorite creators and help us create more free content for you. So huge thank you for your help, and let's get back to the video. Great. Now second to last we have the eyes. The eyes are quite big and they are pretty much ovals, although they are a little bit more like egg-shaped ovals. So the bottom is a little bit wider than the top. And a few tips on the positioning for the eyes. The bottom usually aligns with the bottom of the nose, so you can put a guide there to help you. And the top is pretty much halfway between the top of the head and the top of the snout. So you can also add a quick guide here, and that should just help you draw the eye. Now the other one, the one that is kind of hidden by the snout, is a little bit more narrow. Again, because our character is seeing 3/4. And inside we have big, tall and narrow ovals for the pupils. And last but not least, we have the eyebrows, which in Bluey characters are just these big, I was going to say slugs, but that's a bit gross. Let's say big pickles. I don't know what they are. They're just these big, slightly curved, super long ovals. And the positioning of them obviously depends on the emotion of the character, but they usually overlap with the top of the head. And there you go. This is the basic recipe, I guess, or the basic structure to draw any of the dogs from Bluey, including Bluey herself. Now, in the next section of the video, I'm going to give you tips and show you how to customize this structure to match any style of dog. But before that, we're going to quickly clean our sketch a little bit, just so we have a better base to start with. So go ahead and grab your eraser, focus on cleaning up your own sketch. But one thing to keep in mind as well, this is a good time to use the selection tool and arrow tool combination like I did on the tail if you want to move any element around and play with the proportions of your sketch. And when I say clean up your sketch here, it does not need to be perfect in any way because we're not going to see it in the final result, but it's nice to start the customization process with a slightly cleaner base. Okay, so at this stage, you should either have your base sketch like this, or you need to import the template. To do that, head to the video description below to download it for free, and follow the instructions provided with the file to import it into Procreate. And here we're going to go ahead and rename the template to template. And I'm also going to rename my sketch layer to sketch, just to make sure our file is organized. Now I'm going to use the template to do the customization. Since everyone's sketch might be a tiny bit different, I feel like if I start from the template, at least we're all going to have one point of reference. And I'm also going to lower the opacity of the template so it's just not this really intense drawing. To lower the opacity of a layer in Procreate, you simply have to tap on the little N next to the check mark, and that's going to open up the opacity slider right here. Now I'm going to lower mine not too much because I want you to see it in the video, of course, but in your case, lower the opacity as much as you can until you can just not see the template anymore. So probably something around, 10 to 15% for you. Once that is done, go ahead and create a new layer above your sketch or template and rename that new layer to Customized Sketch. And here I'm going to stick with the same brush, which, as a reminder if you're just joining now, was the HB pencil from the sketching pack that comes with Procreate. And yeah, I'm going to work with black this time so that we can see our new lines very, very well. There's a lot of breeds that have been featured in some shape or form within the Bluey universe. And there's this really great image I'm going to link in the video description below. You can always refer to and see what the illustrators and the animators decided to use to represent the different features of a dog within the Bluey universe. So it's a really, really good reference. Now I'm going to do an example of a dog that is not featured in the image, just to give you tips on how to approach it from scratch. And the dog I'm going to use is my dog, it's Waffle. She's a samoyed, and I haven't seen it in the Bluey universe. If there's one, please share it with me because I'd love to see it. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open an image that I can use as a reference. And to do that, you have a couple different options. Still in the wrench icon menu, you could go in the canvas and activate this reference toggle right here, which is going to open this little window. You can move around, it's pretty handy. And if you pick image, it's going to let you import an image from your camera roll. So that's one option. I'm personally going to do just adding the photo straight in my Procreate file as a layer, because in the coloring phase I'm going to have a tip that requires me to have my image as a layer. So to do that, we're going to go in the wrench icon menu, in the add some menu, insert a photo. I'm also going to resize it and just put it at the top here so I can refer to it without it being completely in the way. So we're going to start by looking at the body rectangle, which is super easy to customize because it's going to remain a rounded rectangle no matter what. Now, depending on the breed of the dog you are drawing, you can adjust the width of the rectangle. So if you have a dog that is, I guess, chunkier, stockier, kind of a bulk, squarish dog, then your base rectangle could be wider. And inversely, if you have a dog that is kind of a skinnier breed, a little bit thinner, maybe a little bit longer as well, you could have a more narrow rectangle. And if you are drawing multiple dogs, you could also play with the height of the rectangle, but in my case, since it's just one standalone dog, it doesn't really matter. Now, Waffle's build is pretty much kind of halfway. She's not super stocky, she's not super thin, so I'm just going to go over what I had for Bluey's rectangle here. And this customized sketch does not need to be nice and clean. We're really just trying to roughly plan what our character is going to look like. The legs and the arms don't change a whole lot between characters, so I'm just going to redraw what I had in my sketch, or the template in this case. That being said, feel free to experiment with the length of the legs if you feel like it. And it's as simple as that. Now, the tail is an element that is really easy to customize, but is going to make a big, big, big difference. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, myself. If you've been wanting to learn how to draw your own illustrations, to take whatever is in your head and put it on paper, then consider checking out my illustration course, Illustration from Scratch. This is a course with 10 modules that will teach you everything you need to know to start drawing your own art, no matter your current skill level. You will learn things like color theory, how to add lights, shadows, and create a mood. We will demystify perspective and how to create beautiful backgrounds. You will learn how to make your illustrations appealing with the use of good composition, on top of many other things like drawing realistic and cartoon characters, both the head and the body, as well as how to build good drawing habits and how to get unstuck on days where nothing seems to work. And although it is an online course, you won't be left alone. There are Q&A sections after each module where you can ask me questions, and there's also a private community for the students where you can post your exercises and course project to get feedback from me. So if you want to start loving what you draw, then check out the link in the video description below and make sure to use the special promo code to get the exclusive YouTube discount. I'll see you in the course. So we don't see it super well here in Waffle's picture because she's laying down and her tail is relaxed. But the second she's standing up, her tail is curled in this kind of spiral. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to bring the tail, make sure I have plenty of little floofs, and then create this kind of spiral shape. Now in the case of your dog, it could be a super thin and pointy tail. It could be an even bigger tail than Bluey, just like this massive fluffy thing. It could be no tail or barely any tail. There's a lot of different things that you can do to quickly give more information on which type of dog you have by simply just changing the tail. It's such a telling, no pun intended, element, so it's really worth experimenting with a few different options. Now the next thing I'm going to work on is the snout here, and there's quite a few different things. If you look at the reference image with all the Bluey dogs, you're going to see that the height of the snout is one thing that changes. The direction, or the angle I guess, of this top line changes. In the case of Bluey it's totally flat, but some dogs have an angle. Some dogs even have kind of a curve. So there's a few different things that you can do here to adapt this basic shape and make it look more like the type of dog you're trying to draw. So it's always going to be, again, this just combination of the bottom big curve of the snout, and the bottom is pretty much always aligned with our guide we had. So in the middle of the face, you shouldn't move that one, but this top line is the one that is going to change potentially. So in the case of Waffle, she has this really kind of thin snout with a big nose at the front. So I'm going to lower the line I had in my template. I'm going to keep it as a straight line though. And the bottom line again should not change, although I'm going to create an open mouth for Waffle because she's always barking, so she has to have an open mouth. Now the nose should also pretty much stay the same, so this kind of rounded triangle we had, like this. And to create an open mouth, it is super simple. You just keep the same line you have for the bottom of the snout, and then you literally just open it. So you had either a curve or a big rectangle. You can also add a line here to have teeth. The eyes don't really move, so once you have the snout, you could go ahead and draw the eyes. You might need to extend the one that is hidden by the snout if you lowered the line like me. Oh gosh, I just got carried away here. The pupil is not going to touch the snout like I did. They need to match, obviously, so that's much better. I'm going to draw the eyebrows as well, keeping them the same, although maybe a teensy tiny bit angle like this, because again, Waffle's just this very excited dog. And I might give her eyelashes as well, because why not? Now this is getting a little bit closer to Waffle, but we're still quite a ways off. And the reason for that is we need to adjust the shape of the head to add or remove fluff. So in the case of Bluey, she doesn't really have any extra fluff. But if you look at Waffle, she's a fluffy thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add, similarly to what we did on the tail, these curvy shapes, I'm going to add some of those all around the head. Now if you have a dog that has kind of this lion mane like a chow chow or a samoyed like Waffle, or I don't know, honestly dog breeds is really not my strength, but if you have a dog that is really fluffy, you could go ahead and add those curves in the areas where your dog has the most fluff. I find that Bluey characters don't really have hair that is kind of pointy, it's always rounded, although you could see, for example, in Waffle here, she has these pretty pointy strands around her ears. I'm going to still round those to keep the Bluey style. So I'm still going to make them quite big, but again, just rounded instead of pointy. And then, again, her head is kind of all fluffy, so what kind of shape could I do? Yeah, something kind of like this. And the last thing we can adjust, which is also going to make a big difference, is the ears. Now Waffle has ears that are up like Bluey's, but there are quite a few examples of ears down in the image I mentioned. So if that's the case with the dog you're trying to draw, you can always go and reference that. Now Waffle has pretty big ears, but they're hidden in fluff, so I'm going to pretty much do exactly that. And we're going to lift up the head, or top line for the head, and then just draw slightly smaller ears that are a little bit more round as well because hers are pretty round. So if I go ahead and hide my template here, and my image as well, just so we can see well, we now have a customized, although very rough looking sketch of, in my case, Waffle. And this stage is another great opportunity for our friends, the selection tool and the error tool, because it is one thing to quickly sketch. Once you do have all the elements, sometimes you see that there's something that you would have sketched differently. So of course you could go ahead and erase it and restart, or you could use your selection tool and error tool to move the things around and experiment in a way that is a little bit more intuitive, which is the beauty of digital art. We can't do that with pencil and paper, but we can in digital art software. I really believe that if we have the tools, might as well use them to make our life a little bit easier. So as you might have seen here, I've drawn a selection around the snout because I felt like it was a little bit too long. So I'm just going to bring it in like this. I might also slightly change the angle of this line here. So really just kind of experiment now that I have the sketch that is a little bit more like my dog, to see how I can make it really feel even more, well, like my dog. So feel free to pause the video here, take all the time you need to experiment with creating this customized sketch, but don't worry about cleaning it up just yet. That's what we're going to do in the next section of the video. For now, really just focus on the proportions and the positioning of everything. Okay, so at this stage you either have a customized dog like this, or you have a rough sketch that is Bluey's proportions. In either case, what we're going to do here is we're going to take the sketch and turn it into a nice polished illustration that would fit within the Bluey universe visual style. Now I'm going to use my customized dog right here, Waffle, but the tips in this section are really general, so they're going to apply to whatever you're working with. So the first step is going to be turning the messy sketch we have into a nice clean line art. So to do that, we're going to start by lowering the opacity of the customized sketch or the sketch layer, whichever one you have, so it's not too intense. In your case, lower it as much as you can until it pretty much disappears, so you want to make sure you can see it, but it should be very, very pale. So I would say that probably means anywhere between 10 and 15, 20%. In my case, I'm going to keep it a little bit more opaque so you can see it in the video. Then from there, go ahead and create a new layer above everything you have, and rename that new layer to Line Art. We're going to start the line art with just pure black for now. We're just going to focus on the shape, but later I'm going to show you how to recolor it, because the line art in Bluey has multiple different colors depending on what it's outlining, essentially. And the brush we're going to use here is, again, a free brush that comes with Procreate in the calligraphy pack, the monoline brush. Now if you're working with the same canvas size as I am working with, we're just going to make the brush as small as we can, which honestly might be a little bit big for Bluey characters, but we're still going to roll with it. And then, I mean, really there's not a whole lot to it. We're just going to go over our sketch, and whenever we have a bunch of little lines like this, we're going to find whichever one we prefer and trace over that one to have our final clean line art. And just one general tip here, whenever you're drawing outlines or line art, you might be tempted to erase. I would advise you to try and not do that for a couple different reasons. The first one is if you erase and try to restart your line kind of halfway in the middle of the line, there's probably going to be some sort of an overlap, or the flow of the line at least is going to be broken and it's going to look a little bit off. And reason number two is that you are much better to undo and redo the whole line than to try to erase and kind of start halfway like we just talked about. Because I know it might be a little bit hard to believe, it's actually going to be much quicker that way. Maybe not the first few times you do it, but as you get used to it, it's significantly faster to do that. So if you feel like the line you just drew is not optimal, undo, which you can do on Procreate by tapping on the screen with 2 fingers and then just redraw the line from scratch. There's really not much more to it, so I'm going to stop talking here to let you focus on drawing your line art, but I'm going to keep my video going in the background, just like if we were drawing together. So something like that. Now before I move on, I'm going to mention that I added this curve right here for a tongue, which I forgot initially. And I'm also adding this little line here on the corner of the mouth. Just feels a little bit better. That being said, go ahead and hide whatever sketch layer you have, and you should be left with a nice clean line art. Now there are quite a few methods to color within Procreate. I actually have a whole video that shows you 2 different methods that I really like. So if you want to experiment with different styles, you can check out that tutorial. I will link it in the video description below. Otherwise here I'm going to show you a quick method that is going to be again in the style of the Bluey universe, and is going to use just very simple Procreate features that are going to make it very, very easy. The first thing I'm going to do here is reactivate my reference image. If you have one, please go ahead and do the same. Otherwise you can easily pick whatever color you want. And my dog is white, so I definitely need to do that, but even if your dog is a different color, I highly encourage you to set your background to a neutral gray. It's just going to help you see the contrast a little bit better in your piece, because if your character is on white, white is the brightest color, so it's going to trick your brain into thinking that the colors you're using are darker than they really are. Now once we have that, we are going to create a new layer under the line art, and we are going to rename it to color. And you could go ahead and just, hold your pencil on your reference picture to pick the color. But as you can see, even if I move just a teensy tiniest bit, I get a completely different color. So I have a little trick for that whenever you want to color pick from a picture. What I like to do is duplicating the picture layer, which you can do by swiping the layer towards the left with one finger and tapping duplicate here. And I just like to do that so that I can keep one layer untouched. And then one of the copies, I'm going to add a blur to it. And so to do that, you can go in the magic wand icon right here, Gaussian blur right here, and then if you swipe your finger toward the right, you're going to add blur, and if you swipe it toward the left, you're going to remove the blur, or decrease the amount of blur, I should say. So the exact amount is going to depend on the size of your picture, but essentially what you want to have here is you want to mix the colors. So you can still see roughly what is on the picture, but it's going to allow you to color pick and not have as much variation as we did without the blur. So I'm going to just set mine at 8%, and now you see I move around, there's still some variation, but not nearly as much. Of course, if I go into shadows versus in the super bright areas, it's going to be different, but if I stick to a more neutral area, it's going to be more uniform. So try to do exactly that. Just go to a neutral area as much as possible and color pick the color of your dog. And if your dog has multiple colors, just pick the main one for now, and you can add on the other ones later. And since we have this super clean line art, there's a really handy feature in Procreate called Reference, which will allow us to add the colors on a separate layer, in our case, the color layer, and keep the line art layer perfectly clean. But still, Procreate is going to recognize that the line art is the boundaries, essentially, for the colors. So if you go on your line art layer, tap on it to open the layer menu, you're going to see Reference right here. If you activate that, it's going to say Reference under line art. And then going back on your color layer, if you just drag and drop your color, you can see it's going to stay within the shape. Now you might need to adjust what is called the threshold here, so when you drop your color, keep your pencil on the screen and then move it from left to right to left until you find the moment just before the color fills in the entire screen. So in my case, that's 99%. And then if you tap continue filling here, you're going to be able to just tap on the other shapes, at least the ones that should be the same color, and fill them in as well. Now Waffle is just one color, so that makes it quite easy for me. If your dog has spots or multiple colors, what you might want to do is create a new layer above your color layer. And in this case, you would probably rename your color layer to white and then the other one to whatever other color you're drawing. So let's say Waffle has brown spots, just to give you an example. And then that secondary color layer, you're going to tap on it to open the layer menu, and you're going to select Clipping Mask. And now with Clipping Mask activated, whatever you draw on this new layer is going to stay within the color shape. Now the reason the line art reference by itself would not work is because in the Bluey style, if you have spots or different colors on the dogs, I'm just going to pick a random brown here, there's no outline around the spot. So you would need to come in at this stage and just draw whatever shape you want But by having, again, clipping masks, you're going to be able to stay within the color shapes, so at least you don't have that to worry about. Now, one thing though, if you are using this technique to add multiple colors, you might need to temporarily deactivate reference on your line art layer. Otherwise, you won't be able to use color drop to fill in the new shapes, since the line art is still what Procreate will consider to be the boundaries. So pause the video here if you have other hair colors to add to your dog, and once you're done, make sure to reactivate reference on your line art layer so we can color the other elements such as the nose, the tongue, the eyes, and the teeth. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to, for the ears, pick Waffle's inside of the ear color, which is this dirty beige, and put it right on my color layer. Actually, that's way too similar to what I had initially. Let's make it a little bit more different. There we go. And then the eyes and the teeth are just straight up white. So I'm going to pick up straight up white and recolor those elements. The nose is kind of a really, really dark charcoal gray. So I might actually go ahead and try to see if Waffle's nose color would work here. Oops. Might be a little bit too pale. There we go. Then the eyebrows are usually just a paler version of one of the colors on the dog. So I'm going to hold my finger on my dog color here to grab it and just manually make it lighter. And then drop that on the eyebrows. Now the last thing I have here is the tongue, which, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a nice pink. That looks pretty good. That might be a little bit too intense. Yeah, that's better. Now I know I color picked from Waffle, but looking at it like this, I do feel like she's way too gray. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to use the color I used for the eyebrows and put it on whatever I had for the body, and then I'm going to make the eyebrows even lighter. So you can very easily here, as you can see, just tweak the colors. Because we have this clean line art, it makes it super, super easy. So feel free to pause the video here, take all the time you need to add the basic color to your character. And then we're going to finish the piece by adding some very simple shadows, some very simple lights, and we're going to super quickly recolor the line art to make it look more like Bluey style. In your average Bluey illustration, the lights and shadows, at least on the characters, are very simple. There's only two simple shadows at the bottom, well, on the top of the legs, kind of under the body, and then a simple light on the nose. So we're going to draw those. We're going to draw them on a new layer between the line art and the color. And we're going to rename that layer to Lights and Shadows. Now we want it to stay within the color that we just drew, so we're going to go ahead and create a clipping mask, like you did previously if you had multiple colors on your dog. And here again, super, super simple. I'm going to start with the shadows, so we're just going to color pick the base color we have for the dog, and we're going to make it a little bit darker. And otherwise you can just outline these kind of slightly curvy rectangles. Deactivate the reference option on your line art layer, go back on your lights and shadow layer, and then fill in those shapes to create the shadows. Make sure you refine them as needed, something like that. And then the nose, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to pick the base color, we're going to make it quite a bit brighter, and we're going to draw a big oval on the top of the nose. And last but not least, we are going to recolor the line art. And as I mentioned, the line art should just be a darker version of whatever it is outlining. And that's going to mean different things because we have different colors on our character. But we're going to start with just a darker version of the main color you have on your dog. So you can go ahead and color pick that. Make it quite a bit darker. And you're going to swipe your line art layer with 2 fingers toward the right. Or alternatively, you can tap on the layer to open the layer menu and activate Alpha Lock right here. This will allow you to draw on the line art layer and stay within the lines that were already there. Then once you have that, if you tap on Fill Layer, it's going to recolor your line art with the color you had selected. Now mine is really similar to my background color, so I'm going to go ahead and change that right here. It's a bit awkward creating a character that is gray. So I'm just going to set it to a random color right here. There you go. And then from there, we're going to tweak the outlines that are around other colors. So we're going to start with the eyes, because that's going to make a big difference. We're going to bring them back to black. We're actually going to change the brush just to make our life a little bit easier. We're going to go in the airbrushing pack that comes with Procreate, and we're going to pick the hard brush. And all we're going to do here is we're going to, you might need to adjust the size, but we're going to go over the outlines that we need to recolor. And as you can see, it's going to do that very easily and very quickly. Now in this case, for example, here, where the eyes meets the snout, you need to be a little bit more precise. But in general, it's pretty quick and painless. So the eyes should be black. The outline of the nose is probably going to be black as well, unless you have, or unless your dog has a brown nose. The inside of the mouth is going to be black, but not the outline, so you may have to cheat a little bit here. Just like this. And that's pretty much it for the black, I think. So now I'm going to move on to the ears. Editing Genevieve here, I'm realizing I made a mistake. Technically, there should not be an outline around the inside section of the ear. So if you have one like me, just go ahead and recolor it the same color as the inside of the ear itself. The eyebrows. And that's pretty much it, although I'm looking at Bluey right now and I'm noticing that there should be an outline around the tongue and the teeth. So I'm going to go back to my monoline brush. Where is it again? Calligraphy. Monoline brush at the smallest size. I'm going to deactivate alpha lock on my line art layer, again just by swiping it with 2 fingers to the right so that I can create new line art. And I'm going to grab a darker version of the tongue color, and add this line here, and then a darker version of the teeth, so just a gray essentially, and outline that too. I'm going to fix the actual outline because I had a bit of an overlap. And there you go, you have a custom dog illustration in the style of Bluey. I would absolutely love to see what you created, so make sure to share the results with me on socials. My handles should be floating on the screen right now. Now if you like creating your own Bluey type dog, then I highly recommend you check out this video in which I'm going to show you how to create your own Animal Crossing character. But before you leave, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you are not already to make sure you don't miss any future tutorial. Then click on the link right here, and I'll see you there.